We see the queen walking in. She proclaims her name to be Guinevere Capet, the princess of the Suet Kingdom, and she tells the people inside of the room about exactly that. But the door behind her slams, making her frightened and freaked out about the whole situation. She's holding a box in her hands, and she catches her breath and she tries her hardest to repeat that she's here for a reason. "I'm here to be the queen of the Twilight Kingdom," she says with a terrified tone. A smug voice responds. We see in the silhouettes and shadows multiple individuals hidden from us, until it reveals two people. One of them is a blonde-haired man. He asks the woman that is scantily clad underneath him what this girl had just said to him. The red-haired girl tells him, once again, in a smug tone, and with an ugly grin on her face, that the lady in front of them just said she's going to be their queen. All the people in the room are starting to laugh. They're mocking Guinevere, and saying that maybe all she can do is weave and sign like a nightingale, and that women from the Twilight Kingdom are all good at dancing and horse riding, and that a girl from a kingdom in the south wanting to be their queen is simply funny. Even the guy in blonde hair says that perhaps she's here to ask for her death, and that they can just throw her out of the palace, and since she is dressed so flimsily, she can perish from just the cold outside. But then, we see the blonde-haired man step forward. He grabs the poor Guinevere by the throat. He's choking her and trying to kill her. A small, dying country sends an insignificant princess here and thinks she can be my queen? How ridiculous and foolish, he says to her while slowly choking her to death. With a little air she can get, she tells him that they've already been engaged and they should be getting married since a long time ago. But all he says to her is that it's ridiculous and nothing more than a verbal agreement made between her kingdom and a dead man, presumably his brother or father, someone. Honestly, this guy is way too cocky and rude for a ugly piece of work. Am I right or am I right? Either way, he tells her that now he's the ruler of the Twilight Kingdom, and his name is Arthur Ray Uthis. And the only thing she can do for him, if she's going to stay here, is to be his property and a slave, nothing more than a toy to him. We see the chain start rattling. The red-haired woman tells her to come to her while holding a neck chain, saying that it was specially made for her, the Suyat Kingdom's little princess, while everyone in the room laughs at the situation at hand. But the poor Guinevere is panicking and freaking out. "No, this can't be happening," she screams out. "I don't want it." But they force the chains onto her. She screams out that she doesn't want to be a slave, but they just continue to force on the chains upon her. She demands them to remove the chains and that she's a princess and that she's here to be the queen. But the ugly blonde-haired Arthur guy just holds her chains and tells her, "No, you don't deserve to be my queen. You only have one choice, which is to be the lowliest toy among my lovers." He says this while pulling her chain, and we see as Guinevere struggles to get loose, but it's futile. It doesn't work. He tells her that she might be unaware of it, but he's already had other princesses from the Reuben family in Mansa Castle that were sent to be his queens, but according to him, those women were smarter as they didn't even dare to show up here, and they didn't dare to, confirm that they are the queen. Guinevere is panicked. As she huddles in the ground, chained, all she can think is that he's a psycho. No, actually, every single one of these pieces of shit, they're all psychos. She remembers her mother, King Uthas, the man whom her father and brother ordered her to marry. He's a total freak. We hear her memories. Before the incident, she had a weird and horrible dream about a wedding for 2 consecutive nights. But at that time, she didn't realize that that was all a warning from fate. We see as the real character wakes up. The whole thing was just a nightmare, and what we saw was a world set in a book that she reads. But she experienced something similar in real life. When her father passed away 2 years ago, she was meant to split the family property into 2, one half to her and the other half to her stepmother and stepsister. After 2 years, she was going to marry her boyfriend. Right on the wedding day, however, she found out that he'd been cheating on her with the stepsister for a long time, This was all a plan to take away her money and to cash in on her life insurance money because they planned to also take her life. They schemed into tricking her for 2 years and had planned to, well, trick her into an accident after the wedding. She got furious. She throws her wedding flowers on the fiancé, but unfortunately, she couldn't stop both of them as they fought back and attacked her. Her stepsister tried choking her, and the fiancé pushed her. She had thought that her boyfriend had actually really fell for her, that it was truly a love on first sight, and they would stay together forever. But turns out that it was all a lie. We see her get pushed off and punched by her stepsister and fiancé. They push so hard that they fall off the top floor, and they get her killed. All she can think about is how she just couldn't accept the fact that she died so pathetically, and that on the day that was supposed to be the happiest of, her entire life, her wedding. We see her and the stepsister as well as the fiancé all falling from the balcony and down to the ground. We return to Guinevere, who is lying on the ground and coughing. As she looks up, she says, "I came back to life?" It seems our real-world character has been reincarnated back to life inside of this novel. We see a red-haired woman from earlier walking in. She says she was just about to have the body collected, but turns out she came back to life. She's saying that that's pretty tough for a Suyat girl. But she is confused. She doesn't want to die today. And today is supposed to be her wedding. She asks the red-haired lady who she is. Turns out she didn't realize yet that she'd traveled into another world, and she just felt many strange and scrappy scenes flooding into her mixed-up mind, of memories from her new life and even from her past. The red-haired woman says her name is Liv, and that she is His Majesty's favorite woman, aka she's the one that he bangs a lot. But our main character is confused. His Majesty who? What do you mean? Liv says she's referring to King Arthur Ray Uthas, of course, the noblest man in the Twilight Kingdom. She wonders if perhaps she's become stupider after coming back to life, and why she is sitting there gawking at her with that terrible look. Perhaps she thinks that Liv looks ugly. All that she can think to herself is that the woman in front of her, she's gorgeous, but her beauty is somewhat disgusting, which is so correct. Liv looks at her in that disgusted way, and she tries to hold herself onto Liv, but she gets angry. She calls her a wench while screaming and demanding her to just let go. Does she wish to have a death wish or something? Liv hates being touched like that. She then proceeds to slap her right in the face. The chains keep clattering. All she can feel is the headache that she already was having is just getting worse. She doesn't understand how long did she stop breathing for. What's going on? Where is she? She coughs again and wonders why there are chains around her neck. She thinks this is all just reminding her of that nightmare she used to have over and over again. Liv puts down the candles she was holding and pulls something out of her bra. She says that with her personality, she won't be able to survive in this place since His Majesty happened to have arranged a game in the garden tonight, and she wants to be kind enough and give her a wonderful wedding experience as a farewell gift. She says this as she grabs her by the hair. She tries to force the weird purple liquid down her throat, and all she can do is cough and resist as much as she can, but she still swallows it. Game? Wedding? Experience? What is she talking about? Our main lead is very confused. She keeps coughing up the liquid when a voice is heard in the Mac. Liv, it's Arthur. Liv says that the stupid woman stained her clothes while she hides the weird purple liquid in her bra again. What did you feed me? She wants to know what the liquid was that was just forced down her throat, but the moment Arthur hears her speaking, he wonders why she's alive. He pulls the metal chains and chokes her. Liv stands by him and tells him to look at the horny princess who's dying to spend her wedding night with someone, as both of them stare down while she's laying on the ground. He looks at her and calls her a slut. But our girl resists. "You're the worst king ever!" she screams out in disgust and anger. He's caught off guard. He didn't expect her to say that straight to his face. Just as he's about to do something to her, a man walks in telling His Majesty that someone called Lornas wants to report something about a war taking place to him. But Arthur tells him to tell Lornas to fuck off. and calls the guy a killjoy for wasting his time. He grabs the chain and pulls at it with full force. He pulls her by the chain and forces her to struggle along on the ground, while he starts talking about how Lornes is quite useful and how he gave him the longest coastline on the north side of the continent without him having to break a single sweat himself. That name, Lornes, it sounds familiar to our girl, but she isn't sure just yet. He keeps pulling her by the chains, and he tells her that she's just an illegitimate daughter of a king in a small country that depends on farming and trading specialties. That's it. That's all she is. She doesn't even have a claim to the throne yet. She wants to be his queen, and she should know her place, because that's not where she belongs. But all she feels is shock. What is happening? What is going on? Outside, she sees people in masks, all naked and doing stuff with each other. He tells her to look. This place is for her. Do you like this? He says. He keeps making energetic beats and basically tells that these are slaves in his garden, and they're all just like her. He whispers into her ear and says that she should go find one like herself and spend a memorable wedding night with whoever she finds, while he then kicks her in the back. She falls down the steps, but she doesn't fall on the ground. She's able to stand up, and the people in front of her start whispering about how she is the woman from the Suyat kingdom. But she feels terrified. They think she looks delicate and fragile. Ugh, creepy. One of the creeps goes in and says her skin is so fair and he wants to have a taste. As he tries to jump on her, she recoils and pushes away. One of them even says he loves feet and wants to lick her. Hey yo, who wrote this? This is a bit weird. She screams, demanding them to go away and not touch her. Her eyes fill up with tears. What is going on? What's happening? All she thinks to herself is that this is all ridiculous. How did she end up in such a messed up place after dying? But she remembers this scene appearing in her nightmare, or perhaps maybe in a book she read once. She thinks this is all just weird, so she keeps running away from the creeps. Eventually, however, she stumbles upon a rock that makes her fall over. As she lays on the ground, she hears the sound of running water. There seems to be someone in front of her. The shape of a man, with blood and scars, stands right there. Is it another one of the weirdos? She looks at the man, and with tears in her eyes, she uses what little strength she has left to say the words, "Help. Someone. Please help me." The man in front of her finally turns around. He's wearing a creepy weird mask. Who is he exactly? "Your Majesty, let's play a game. Guess how many beasts will get to enjoy her tonight?" It's Liv. She laughs while mocking the abuse of Guinevere as she's huddling up next to His Majesty Arthur. Liv says that she offered herself, so it's what she deserves. But Arthur says that it's a pity because he was willing to enter a marriage alliance with the Suyat kingdom, but since this princess was so frivolous, that having someone like her as his queen would just bring shame to his people. She says she'll be executed by dawn and holds back more of the ugly grin. Liv asks him, why? Why the rush? The little princess's dowry hasn't even arrived yet. And besides that, she's beauty, so does he really have the heart to let go of her while he can still use her? He just tells Liv that, he doesn't care. He loves sly and clingy women like Liv much, much better. As both of them lay on the bed, and she strokes his chest. He then recalls how earlier she had yelled back at him and says that she makes him sick. He doesn't want anyone that speaks back to him. We return to Guinevere. She's laying on the ground, letting out small and weak noises, asking the man in front of her to please help. Please, please help me. Her legs went limp suddenly, and she can't stand up anymore. She wonders if the reason she's feeling hot and almost boneless and so weak might perhaps have to do with what that woman Liv forced down her throat. The man from earlier is still standing in the water fountain in front of her. All she can do is wonder, what on earth was that stuff she forced into me? What did she actually do? She stares at that man in the fountain within the pool, and she thinks to herself that there are slaves in the pool as well. That's a bit weird. And that he also wears a mask, but he seems different from those people. He is just standing there quietly, and his eyes look calm. She notices his body is covered with scars and that he smells like blood. But why? In the distance, however, the creeps from earlier can still be heard. They wonder where she went, and eventually they spot her. They wonder if she's dumb, because she thought she could escape. The man with the black mask has a flare in his eyes. He also seems to have a weapon on hand. The creeps freak out. He's not one of them. He might be a nobleman who snuck inside, and they worry he might kill them, so they panic and run away. He steps out of the pool and approaches our main lead. She panics, asking him to not come over to her. All she can think is that he reeks of blood. The man asks her, "Are you drugged?" She tells him that she's the princess of the Suyat kingdom and that he cannot defile her. He replies saying, "Suyats? Huh. Arthur thinks the support from Suyat is dispensable. He won't make you his queen." He goes in and grabs her and tells her that to give him justification to send her home, the weirdos need to defile her. As she grabs a hold of him, he also grabs a hold of her. All she can think about is how dazzling his eyes are, their golden color. He holds her in his arms and says that if her family cherishes her, they will send someone to her home right away. But if not, then, well, she's going to spend the rest of her life in pain and sorrow if she remains in this place. He says that he can put her down now or get her out of here, but it's up to her. She cries into his chest saying to please take me away from here. He asks her name and she replies saying her name is Guinevere. "Okay, Guinevere, do you have any wishes for tonight?" He asks her this, and the words she utters next are, I'm a princess and I want to be a queen, not a tool." She's starting to feel like she has a fever, and the dizziness and hot feeling make her keep babbling on. "I'm the bride. I don't want to be deceived. I don't want to be abandoned." The man is stunned by her words, and he puts her on the ground. He asks her to give him a second. He pulls up the sword from earlier out of the water. He stares at the sword, and Guinevere is just confused, not knowing exactly what is going on. He swings the sword and cuts off the chains that were around her neck. He speaks her name. "Guinevere, everything will be as you wish," he tells her, as the pieces of the chain fall down into the pool from earlier. In the distance from the castle, a loud laugh can be heard, but inside, we see Guinevere is laying in a bed. She feels awful. But the man in the mask tells her that she has been drugged, and that's one of Liv's tricks, which are just getting nastier and nastier by the day. Guinevere is having these weird feelings. However, she wonders if they are because of what Liv did to her, and the man says that, yeah, it's all because of that. She then holds his chiseled arms and asks him if she may see his face. Tears once more fill up her eyes. He tells her yes, and she goes in to grab his mask right off the face. As she removes it, all she can think to herself is how handsome he is. She's so thankful that she was shown mercy and that she at least gets to have a look at a beautiful man on her wedding day. She then goes in and kisses the unmasked man. They hold each other passionately as an owl in the background makes noises. "Shut up, Jay!" The owl flies away. We see a man talking to someone else. "I hate to break it to you, young master, but it's time to go. The wild beastmen launched a surprise attack on our barracks in the Walleen," the man says. He says the beastmen won't stop their attacks anytime soon, but that he's out of money already. He asks the other guy if she got anything out of his trip, and when His Majesty will allocate funds to the actual army. But the man responds, saying that the Majesty is avoiding him. He says he was going to be sneaking into the palace and asking for the money in person, but, oh, it's the man from earlier, the man who saved Guinevere, and now he's wearing a giant black armor. And he seems to be working for that scumbag King Arthur. The man with the unmasked guy says that sneaking into the palace is the last thing he should be doing, and that it would be giving the Majesty a thing to use against him later. The younger man says that their Majesty is paranoid and unpredictable, and a very tight-fisted man. But he then stops calling him out and says, Jay! Jay figures that it was not a good idea to speak about such things so loud. He stares towards the castle and says that he wants to take a woman with them before they leave. If you guys enjoy these kind of videos, feel free to subscribe. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Either way, chapter 4. We see the knight in black armor standing outside, and Jay's freaking out. What? Did you fall for one of Arthur's servants? She's just a dancer who's even lower than a mere slave. It's outrageous, Jay proclaims. Not only can't you take her out, but you can't even admit you slept with her, or her life will be at stake, Jay keeps saying, but the black-armored knight ignores his words. He tells him that he is a young master and that he has something in his hands, that being her ladyship, since he slept with her. But he tells Jay to stop nagging. He says he'll put an end to this fight quickly in 5 days, no, 3 days, and he'll return in those 3 days. Jay says that perhaps that girl must be very attractive, given that his young master is being so infatuated by her. But he just tells Jay to shut up as they ride away into the horizon. It's morning. We see the kingdom of Twilight. Guinevere is now awake, and she has realized she's now in a book. After a frantic night, she can finally see what is happening and what's going on. She awakens and realizes she's in the Twilight Kingdom. She recalls that name and the name Suyat. All of those were in a book. She has entered an obscure biographical novel called Lornes the Great. This book is so unknown that no one else has actually heard of it, and she couldn't find a single piece of information about it on the internet. It's like she's the only person in the world who's read this book. And due to the accident, she somehow became Guinevere Capet, a character from the book, the princess of a country in the so-called Suyat Kingdom, which is in the books. She figured all of this out because of the fact that her memories and those of the book's character Guinevere seem to have overlapped somewhat, like a mixture of the two. She stands up and looks in the mirror. She is Guinevere Capet, she tells herself. She recalls something, however. Guinevere, the character, she's not a prominent character in the book. The author actually depicted her tragic life in just a few brief sentences. We see Guinevere being crowned. She was born out of wedlock, but named a princess. She was married by her father and brother into the most powerful country on the continent. At that time, that was the Twilight Kingdom. However, King Arthur, the ruler of the Twilight Kingdom, held contempt for Suyat and treated her with disdain. We see as Guinevere is put into a guillotine, and holy shit, they actually kill her. She remembers that not only was Guinevere neglected by her so-called husband, but she was also falsely branded as a soiler and promiscuous. And a few months after her marriage, she met a gruesome fate. Her life was abruptly ended by beheading. Her motherland, Suyat, and her cold-hearted relatives did not even seek vengeance for her death. Instead, they propagated the rumors that tarnished her reputation, making her into a horrible person in history, claiming that she'd been a loose and that she'd been sleeping with people before marriage. Because of this, the curse of this false narrative continued to haunt her long after she passed. It's only many years later, when the actual protagonist of the book, Lornes, rose to power and united the northern continent, that Princess Guinevere's name was rectified during the reorganization of the Twilight Kingdom's records. Guinevere looks herself in the mirror and thinks about it for a second. What's the good in having her name cleared after she is gone? She's decided that while she is still alive, she will seek her own revenge. Just wait, you bastard. Yes, girl, you got this. We believe in you. From now on, she is Guinevere Capet. She will no longer live at the whim of the wicked, and she will live a life worthy of herself. She freaks out a bit. Her eyes, they lit up. She loves that her eyes are purple. She realizes that she possesses royal blood, so that's probably why. She notices the mark on her neck. And well, it hurts. She wonders if it's because of the shackles or perhaps from what happened last night. She remembers the kissing. A man carried her away from Arthur's garden last night. She feels embarrassed. Damn, who was he, she wonders. She was disoriented and foggy-brained last night due to what Liv did to her, so she forgot to ask for his name. She can barely recall what he looked like exactly. She's worried. She thinks he might have been a slave as well, but even so, she still thinks he's way better than Arthur. But she also remembers he had a sword, which is rare to see. She wonders and stresses, wondering if she will actually ever see him again. Our view changes. We see the man. He's in deep combat. He's swinging his sword around and cutting down his foes. "Why are there so many of them today?" a soldier yells out. As they're cutting down monsters, the other guy replies saying that it's because there are too few of them fighting, so that's why. After the battle calms down, the black armored man once again stands in front of us, as Jay from earlier says that they've ran out of provisions and the troops that were provided by the nobles have all withdrawn, and only their own troops remain in battle, wondering when this hell will end. He asks the armored man if they should retreat too, saying that Arthur isn't worth sacrificing their lives for, but he says that it's not for Arthur that they are fighting, but for the people of the Twilight Kingdom. Jay says that it totally makes sense, but if they give up this defense line, the border towns will soon be shattered by the wild giants, and Jay's own mother would be ashamed of him. The dark armored man says that the money remains the key issue. Jay agrees and wishes they would have just ran across a treasure or something. In a different location, we see a castle. We also see some other women. They're speaking, asking if they are sure that the Suyat girl came to the Snowmelt Castle, but they aren't sure. They are considering her condition. It's unlikely that she could have escaped the palace last night. They have searched everywhere except this one location. The red-haired woman tells the other one to go inside and find her, but she doesn't want to go herself because that place is said to be haunted, so she's scared of it. On the other hand, inside we see Guinevere, and she is wondering what to do about her dress, because the current one, well, it's basically torn. She hears some noise in the distance. It's two very tall maids. And in an angry and loud tone, they demand her to come with them. They then grab her hand and she starts to scream, "Who are you? Let go of me!" She gets thrown outside and lays on the ground. It's Liv again. She says she now understands why people in Suyat call her ridiculous. Just look at how disheveled her clothes are. She feels so ashamed of her. But Guinevere is freaking out. She's thinking about the fact that this is bad. In the book, Guinevere was killed precisely because of the stigma attached to her. She didn't think this stuff would be happening so quickly, however. She remembers what the masked man told her. To give him a justification to send her home, they will have her defiled. She remembers all that man said, and she knows everything he said was true.